Okay, this is again Koyach. Mashakosov page Kuf Mem Zayin with base, page 294. Mashakosov Lemchutane, Al Rebbe wrote his Mechuten to the Helika Badichever, and I've gone on before some Mishal Kim. Kadei Shavaye, Neire Yoy, Amud Hayamini, Padash HaChazak. A bunch of nice words, yes? The Alter Rebbe's granddaughter, the Mittler Rebbe's daughter, married the Badichever's son. I don't know. One of the Mittler Rebbe's daughters married one of the Badichever's, could be grandsons, could be not a son, a grandson. It's a famous story, the Grace Chasana in Shlobin. The Alter Rebbe didn't want it to be in Liadi because he didn't want the Badichever to travel to him. The Badichever didn't want the Chal to be in Badichever because he didn't want the Alter Rebbe to marry. So they got married in the middle. In a city that was so small, there wasn't room to walk the streets. And there were Nisim Gloyim, how they fed everybody and they housed everybody. Thousands of Chassidim came, Saifan Lubavitch and Saifan Liadi from Badichev. And it's a very famous event in Chabad history. Both of my wife's grandparents, Reb Nissen and Matl Shusterman, were Zlobiner. And my grandfather used to tell me that he remembers people who remembered people who were at a wedding. Till the Holocaust, Zlobin lived on the aura of that chasana that had taken place 130 years earlier. The Zlobin, it's a very famous event. They were very, the Alter Rebbe and the Badichever were good friends. They loved each other. The Badichever stuck up for the Alter Rebbe. He was one of the few who fought against the critics of the Alter Rebbe. The Baruch Mezhbush, he wrote him a letter and so forth. Anyway, the Badichever lost his son. Mareinu Rav Levi Yitzchok Nishmas Eiden Av Bezin the Kilas Kadishas Badichev Lenachme Aptiras B'nei Harav Achosid Mareinu Rav Meir Nishmas Eiden. I just want to tell you, we're talking about the Alter Rebbe, the Badichever. When the Badichever passed away, the Alter Rebbe traveled all the way to Badichev to Menachem Avos Almona. It was a ma'aseh from hundreds of miles, weeks. Alter Rebbe traveled all the way to Badichev Menachem Nachem to Menachem Movel, the Badichever's Rebbetzin. That gives you an idea what kind of kesher there was. And a lot of the famous story with Rabbi Hillel Parashah, some say was Rabbi Hillel tried to meet the Alter Rebbe and he was coming back from Menachem Movel to Badichever. It was one of those times that a lot of people got to see the Alter Rebbe because he traveled such an enormous distance. It was a tremendous kesher between these two people. And this is a letter that the Alter Rebbe wrote to Menachem Movel, the Badichever lost his son of Meir. Now when you read this letter, obviously the basic principle of the letter is that this Rebbe Meir was a tzaddik. So this is a letter about Tziluk and Shal Tzadikim, the passing away of Tzadikim. But it's different than the previous letter. Because in the previous letter, the whole emphasis is on the Rebbe still here. And this letter is, even though a passing of Tzadik is a terrible thing, but there's enormous milas, enormous chusim that come from it. And by Pashtus, the reason for this is because Rebbe Meir was not a Rebbe. His father was a Rebbe. He was the son of a Rebbe. So in other words, the previous letter, it gets a Kedesh Zach, is a letter about the Histalkus of a Rebbe, so there's one kind of Inyan. And this is about the Histalkus of Stama Tzadik. It's a different kind of Inyan. And if I may say so, the Nekuda of this letter is that Tzadikim serve Hashem with a Mesiras Nefesh. And because they serve Hashem with a Mesiras Nefesh, the effect of their Histalkus is different, as you'll see. So we begin now. Lama Nismach Pashas Miriam La Pashas Para. Why is the Histalkus of Miriam and Pashas Chukas right after the Sugya Paradum? This is a Ma'ameh Chazal. Leimelach and the Gemara answers, Ma'para Mechaperes, just as the Paraduma is a Kapara, Af Misa Tzadikim Mechaperes. So the passing, what Tzadikim was also Mechaper V'chulu. This is the Gemara. And the question is, the Torah, the Chumash, puts the passing away of Miriam near Paraduma. There's a lot of Karbonas. Of all the Karbonas, the least carbon of Karbonas is Paraduma. Apidin, Paraduma is not really a carbon. It's different halachas. It is a din of Kedushas. It's Bedek Abayis. It's not a Kedushas Aguf. It's not a carbon. There's an Inyan from Chatas Kaya Rachmana. The Torah calls it a Chatas. But Paraduma is not a carbon. It's a different kind of Inyan. It serves a different purpose. And the question therefore is, why adjoin this Seluk and Tzadikim to Paraduma? There are better Karbonis, it would seem, to link it to. Hanasa Chutz L'Shalosh Machanes, which was made outside the Beis HaMikdash, outside Yerushalayim, which L'Cheira shows it was outside the restraints of the Gevul and the Reshus of Kedusha. Ella, it's only the Chatas Kaya Rachmana that the Torah says that Chatasu. But it's not really, it doesn't have a din of a carbon, it doesn't have the same halachas of a carbon. There's a lot of aspects of a Paraduma. It could be an anas, for example. It could be a midget. It could be Bas Gimel, Bas Dal, Bas Hey, which is possible for any carbon. No carbon is kosher past the third year, before the age of 3. So a lot of aspects of Paraduma does not have a din of a carbon. It's only the Chatas Kaya Rachmana. So if you want to teach us this idea,
that Tzlukin Shal Tzadikin is machaper, like a carbon. Pick a regular carbon. Why pick a weird carbon, which is mamish not a carbon, paradum? Okay? Hanasa b'chutz. V'lei nismecha lepashas chatos. Rather than bring it next to the halachas of carbon chatos, hanasa b'fnim, which was in the Beis HaMikdash, al gabi ha-mizbeach, on top of the mizbeach, that was also kapara mamish, just mamish kapara. Now nasa b'fnim could mean because b'fnim in the Beis HaMikdash, or perhaps it could be the based on the param and stuff, masidim and stuff, and there was kipshutei that the dam went inside the heichel. So why do you join Misa Tzadikim to Paradum? And of course the answer is going to be because Faket, Paradum has a mile of all the karbanas. And the idea of Kapara, Paraduma, which we're teaching from it to look at Tzadikim is higher than the regular union of Kapara. The answer is based on what says in Zeir and Arizal about Seid HaKapara Shagav HaMizbeach. What's the mystical secret of all karbanas on the Mizbeach? That they affect as follows. It's an ethruset latat. When you sacrifice an animal and it's consumed by the Mizbeach, it affects a rising up of an inspiration. Man means ethruset latat, the mayanuk from feminine waters. Minefesh avahamis shebenega. For the animal soul of klipas nega. El shar shanu mekeren to its source, to its root and its source. And what is the source of animals? Hein bechinas dalat chayas shebemerkava, which is the chayas merkava, which is el mabriya only. Your carbon reaches the animal shadish, pnei shed, pnei nesher, el mabriya. But as a result, hadesis as a kisei, it raises up atzilus. So you bring a carbon, which the animal goes up till its source in el mabriya. So el mabriya also rises, and then it raises up kisei, which on which the other malyan, the ebish sits kvayachal and el matzilus. So the carbon you bring directly reaches only B'riya. And it raises up Atzilus as well, which is Pnei Sher, Pnei Nesher. And naturally, and because your carbon went up to B'riya, and it was Ma'ila Atzilus, there's a Mayan Dechur in a masculine waters, which we call Esrusa D'Liyela, Esrusa coming back down. Mi Bechinas Adam Shalakise, from the man sitting on the throne, Hanikra b'shem Malka v'zah, which is called the king in Ze'er Ampin. Sorry. So the simple process of a carbon is Esrusa D'Latata, Esrusa D'Liyela. You do something and Hashem gives back. What are you reaching? You're reaching Atzilus HaChakal, which is regular Yiddishkeit. According to Kabbalah, regular Yiddishkeit is L'Shem Yechal G'Shem Shchinte, and the way L'Shem Yechal G'Shem Shchinte works, you do a mitzvah, you touch Atzilus, and Atzilus touches you back. Atzilus has bigger fingers, but that's the way it works. Paraduma is different. Why? Because there's several parts. First of all, there is the sreifa of paraduma. You're burning the animal. The burning the animal is the halah asman, is the esrusa d'latata. After you burn the animal, you're going to bring back an esrusa d'liyela. And the esrusa d'liyela is recognized. The Rebbe writes in the footnote, the next two things are already hamshacha. Hine. When you throw in the cedar and the grass and the red thread, which is already, the Rebbe says in Tanya, the Rebbe understands it to mean already hamshacha, bringing back down. And moreover, in a sinas mayim chayim el ha'efer, and then you're bringing water into the vessel where the ash is, right? How do they do it? They fill up a vessel with water, and then they sprinkle on a little bit of ash. As long as efer nikarim al pnei hamayim, it's kosher lezoy, right? A little bit of ash on the top of the water, and then they could be metayed thousands of people. So they put the water into this basin, and they put the ash into the water. Hanikra nikra b'shem kiddush mechadas. It's called sanctifying the water of the paraduma b'mishnah. Says the Alter Rebbe says you have to understand what this means practically. When you do burning of paraduma is a thruset latati going up. Then the ezev and the shitalas and the ezev and the mechatos is a thruset d'liyela. It's coming back down, but it's not coming back down from Malka and Ze'er Ampin. It's coming down from much higher, because the word kiddush, says the Rebbe, v'hi bechinas kiddush elyon, which is the supernal holiness, which is really because chokhmah. And the pratius, it's chokhmah stimaz sisun. But the Rebbe is saying is, the fact is, lamdas you'll say a different time. Paradum is also isarusad latata esusad d'liyela. However, it's not a esusad d'liyela that goes up to bria and tatzilus, meaning zah. It goes up till chokhmah and keser, because the burning of the paraduma was not considered a regular mitzvah. The burning of paraduma was an inyan which was equivalent to Mesiras Nefesh. It burnt it completely. And the burning of the paraduma, which goes to Mesiras Nefesh, therefore goes higher than Ishtalshalos. And what you're bringing down is therefore also higher than Ishtalshalos. In other words, paraduma is more effective than any carbon. A carbon is makif nega, and it goes up only till zah, and you're bringing down from Hishtalshalus. Paraduma goes up till Chachma until Kesed, and you're bringing down Kiddush. Kiddush means from Chachma, higher than Seder Hishtalshalus. And now we get to some fancy Kabbalah. Hanike b'shem tal de bedulcha. It's called the du tal of bedulcha. Bedelach means crystal. In other words, something which is higher than a color, higher than a sfira. That the mechatas, the waters of Paraduma, which you're bringing down, are from Chachma, and moreover, it's a mechastima, the arechamper. It brings down the hidden Chachma in Kesed. So Paraduma, like any carbon, like any mitzvah, in fact, is esrusa latata, esrusa d'liyela. But Paraduma is not considered a normal mitzvah. It's considered a mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh. Normal mitzvahs are B'didah v'Agbola, and they reach Zoh. Paraduma, Nesibis, is a mitzvah even from Mesiras Nefesh, and it reaches till Kesed, so you're bringing down a much higher Ramshach. And on this idea it's written in multiple places in Zayar. B'chochma is beriru. Birur happens from chochma. Without getting too involved in the Kabbalah, the nekuda is to be mavara something else, you have to be mavura yourself betachlis. To fix something else, you have to be totally fixed. And chochma is perfect. Because chochma is perfect, it's able to mavara other things. In fact, even the birur of ban, when we do birur, we have to have a little bit of chokhmah on the neshama. And if we didn't have a little chokhmah on the neshama, we couldn't be mavad at anything. And our birur is only milmata lamaila. It's not a real birur, not a complete birur. Every birur comes from chokhmah. So when you bring a carbon with a lizah, it's not the full inyan of chokhmah is biriru. When you bring paraduma and you go up till chokhmah and chokhmah stimah, and you bring down from there kiddush mechatos, this is the full inyan of birur. Because you're reaching a place and say the Rishtasas, Chachma Vatzil, so everything is Mavura Betachlas. And the point is going to be, Chavre, that you're Mavarer even Sholish Klipas Atmeis, Lagamri, not just Klipas Nega. Regular carbon is from Nega. Let's keep going. B'Chachma is Beridu, V'Izhabcha Chashechel and Hedu to transform darkness into light. The Hainu, in other words, Elam HaTikun, it's the world of Tikun. Shenizbarer, V'Nistak, it's already been made clear and already been corrected. Aidemechas Demod Arachampen, from Chochmah of Kesed, and in Atzilus, it's in Tikkun, it's already fixed. Me'elam Mateo, from its condition in Elam Mateo, or Shviras HaKelim, and Shviras HaKelim, Shenafel B'Biyav Chol Defel Tabri Yitzir Nasiya Kenei that is known. So in Elam Tikkun, everything is already mavurah. The koyach with this bira comes from Chochmah, and through Paraduma, your mamshach this koyach to be mavarer. And here's the key point: well, and therefore, mitaheres tumas hames. It purifies a person who became tum for touching a dead body. After who avi aves v'chuli, it's the worst kind of tumah. Well, the mata me nega, it's much lower than nega. So most karbonas are mavarer, klipas nega. Most mitzvahs are mavarer, klipas nega. Paraduma, because it's an inyan of Mesiras Nefesh, which goes to a place where everything is already mavurah betachlis, it's able to be mavarer even shalosh kubat meis lagamri. This Rabbaisai is the difference between paraduma and regular karbonas. And now, of course, we need to go back and address the question, what does that have to do with Tiluk and Shal Tzaddik? Okay?